Taylor Rehmet, Democratic candidate for State Senate District 9 in Tarrant County. Thank you so much and welcome to Eye on Politics.
Thank you so much, Jack. Thank you for having me.
You bet. So why are you running and what is the essence of your campaign?
I'm running because I want to make sure that Texans are unified and that working Texans have a voice in the state Senate.
And what does that mean exactly?
Well, what that means is we have a lot of divisive things going on in society right now, and I want to focus on the issues that really unify us as Texans, as Americans, and I want to help make everyone realize that we're really more alike than we are different. And we have things that we need to come together and we need to fight for. We need to really make sure that working Texans are represented in the state legislature.
And so this is a special election. It's not a primary. You're going up against two Republican candidates.
Yes.
Why should voters select you over them?
Voters have a choice. There are two Republicans that don't represent the working class, and I believe that I do. I'm a working everyday Texan. I go to work every day in my workers' union. I turn wrenches. I hear all the issues that working Texans are dealing with, and I want to help represent their interests in the state Senate.
And so if you are elected, what are your top three priorities?
Yes, my top three priorities is I want to help increase representation for people who are working here in Texas, whether that be pay, dignity, respect in the workplace. I want to make sure that we have help for our veterans. Me being a veteran myself, I want to make sure that they have more access to facilities that they need, and I know they do, but we really need to expand on that. And the third thing is our education system is failing kids here in Texas. We need to increase funding for schools. We need to have more teachers and have these teachers better paid. Because when there's 40 kids in a classroom, I don't see how you can give those kids a fair and proper education that they deserve.
And so let's following up on your top priorities as far as education. The the legislature just passed $8.5 billion of new money for public schools. That included money for teacher pay raises. You want to do more of that. You want to increase that further. Talk a little bit about that.
Yes, absolutely. We need to be able to hire more teachers, and we need to be able to pay them even more because, again, we need to attract the best talent to teach the next generation of Texans.
And I know that school choice, the taxpayer-funded education savings accounts, is now law. The state comptroller is now developing a program. And I'm wondering what is it that you would like to see as part of this program? I don't really agree with the program in the sense that there has to be a lot of oversight over these things. We already have schools that are public funded that need more funding, and I just want to make sure that every kid, no matter your zip code, gets an amazing education here in Texas. And would you support legislation to overturn the school choice program?
I would, and I would also want to make sure that it also included more funding for schools, public schools. Yeah.
And then I want to go back to what you said about veterans. What specifically are you talking about? I mean, obviously there's the VA by the federal government, but there are other programs that the state operates. So what are you specifically talking about?
So a lot of veterans, they suffer PTSD and issues, mental health issues after serving. And I would like to see that they have better mental health facilities, more of them, and just that they're not so crowded. I think that we should really give them the best approach and fund it and have a lot more resources available to them in that way.
And then your first priority, you said, as far as workers, what policy, what legislation are you referring to there?
The right to work. To me, it's the right to get paid less, because with a union, you have more agency, you have a voice in the workplace, dignity and respect in the workplace. And no organization is perfect, but I know that in my workers union that I work for, they've been able to negotiate us great contracts. And when a new workplace is organized, they always negotiate up, not down. And so I want to make sure that it is easier to organize a union here in Texas. I want to increase union density here in Texas because that's what really matters. What matters is working Texans. I believe they have the heart and soul of this state.
And so you're talking about changing the state's labor laws, right?
Yes.
And this is still a Republican majority state.
Sure.
Likely still be a Republican majority in the Senate with the Lieutenant Governor and in the House. So how would you actually go about trying to get your ideas passed when you have a Republican majority?
Well, I mean, I don't see why they wouldn't want to help working Texans just as I am. I mean, again, it's, we can work across the aisle to get things done as long as, we keep our constituency in mind.
And I know that when I spoke with the other candidates in this race, big deal for them is additional property tax relief.
Sure.
Where are you on that issue?
I mean, I think that is something that everyone's looking for, or most Texans. Property taxes have, gone up, and we're paying a really high property tax here in this state compared to others. There's ways we can figure that out. When you're looking at the maintenance and operation of schools, the state could help take care of a lot of the maintenance operation costs, as historically they have done in the past, and that would have a way to lower property taxes.
And border security has been a big issue here in the state. As you know, the state spent billions of dollars and is spending this last go-around, this last session, they're spending less than what they had previously, but it's still about $3.5 billion. What do you think about that? Is this something you think the state should be continuing?
Well, I served in the military. I was in the Air Force 4 years active duty, and I worked on B-52 bombers. I understand the presence of national security and border security, and I think that as long as we can treat people with dignity and respect and humanely, we should be protecting our border. Absolutely.
And so you would support still the state spending billions of dollars to do that?
Yes, I think that would be okay as long as it's we know that it's effective.
And one of the things that the state is waiting for to see when and if it is reimbursed by the federal government for the $11 billion that the state had spent before this last session. How would you like to see that money if the state gets it back? What would you like to see done with that money?
Can you repeat the question again?
Yeah. So the state is waiting to see if it gets back the $11 billion that it spent for border security. And if the state does get it back, how would you like to see it spent? What would you like to do with that money, $11 billion, if it is that?
Well, great question. I would love to see our schools get increased funding, like I said prior, but I would also like to see some help with property taxes. I would like to see us, really work on the, again, back to the maintenance operation of schools. I mean, that could be even higher because, before it was even as high as, I believe, 60%, and currently we're somewhere around 40%. We could go even higher, and that way we could also relieve a burden on local taxpayers.
So you're talking about the mix, the state mix and the local mix of how schools are funded.
Yes.
So you're saying increase the amount that the state pays for the public schools as opposed to local property taxes.
Yes.
Okay. And then another big issue, it's always discussed and debated, even though it hasn't gone anywhere in the legislature, and that's gambling. Where are you on that issue, specifically the ideas that have been put forth about having a limited number of resorts that have a gambling casino component in them around the state?
Sure. So my stance and views on that is we already have gambling right outside the border of Texas, and they're bringing dollars outside of our state. if we do have gambling in Texas, I would like to see it with good paying jobs for Texans, union jobs. I, would like it to be, tax regulated, and I wouldn't want any subsidies to go to it to have it done. If they want to bring their business here, they have to pay full price.
And so is it something that you would support?
If done right, like how I just mentioned, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely, yes.
And let me ask you also about THC, because that was a big,
Yes.
a big deal at the end of the regular legislative session. The governor vetoed the ban on THC that was passed in the Senate and the House. And then while the Senate repeatedly passed a ban, full ban on THC products, it didn't go anywhere in the House. And then the governor had an executive order basically banning it for people younger than 21, but then regulating it for everybody else. Where are you on this issue?
So one thing I want to talk about is, if we don't tax it and regulate it, the working Texans don't get the benefit of it. And so it just creates dark, markets for it, just like gambling right now. And so, if we could tax it, regulate it, and make sure it's safe, I think that would be a much better approach than to just, banning it or restricting it, because, there are a lot of veterans that use these products for pain management, among many other people that just work hard and have chronic pain. So I believe it's a Texas working issue, and I would love to see it, the taxes from that benefit, maybe property taxes or again the schools, but we have to focus on helping working Texans, because that's a unifying issue.
And I know that the people who support banning it altogether point to the medical uses. The state does allow medical uses for some of these products. And what do you say to that?
Well, it's a medical use. Not everyone can afford to go to the doctor right now. And they may not be able to get that medical use. You know what I'm saying? So if we can, just make it more accessible, but make sure it's lab tested, make sure it's regulated safely, and we tax it. There's examples in other states that it was a boon to their economy in an extreme way. So I don't understand why we would not take that benefit for Texans.
And my last question, you brought up health. Do you believe in expanding Medicaid? And if so, how would you go about passing that, again, in a Republican-dominated legislature that opposes that?
Yes, I would love to expand it. We have to take care of the most vulnerable in our communities, people that need Medicare. And I think that it's a valid question. How am I going to convince people that are against that? It's with persistence, and it's with building a message and organizing people and letting people know this is something that will benefit all Texans. It's a boon to our economy.
Taylor Rehmet, Democratic candidate for State Senate District 9. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jack.
We appreciate it.